Okay, good morning all. So I can see that Sky and I through on the camera. So Kenneth?
Thanks, Verity. Warren, I suppose, first of all, the injury to Jack, bitter blow for yourselves and more so for himself. So frustrating given that he's had a wretched second half of the season since the World Cup.
Yeah, he's pretty gutted. He had a tight hamstring when he played against Munster. He felt it had been a bit tight there, so we've just been looking after him, monitoring him, and unfortunately yesterday he sort of felt it pretty tight, so we got him scanned and he's been ruled out. So he's very disappointed, but it gives him an opportunity to get a good pre-season in and have a rest and start thinking about later in the year.
You're able to call on one of your co-captains from the last World Cup in Dewi Lake, but have you made a decision then with Dow Jenkins not available for this game, for the tour itself in Australia?
No, I haven't, no.
So that'll be done just seeing how he performs on the weekend?
No, it'll be done after the game, yeah.
In terms of injuries, how are you looking elsewhere before this game and going to Australia? Yeah,
we've got a couple of niggles with guys that had come in that have been rehabbing during this period. A couple of players on selection that we feel are going to be fit, but haven't been able to take a full part in training at the early parts of this week. So we're just giving them a little bit extra time to make sure that they can get on the plane next week.
Ben Thomas being one, he's not. Jacob Beetham is on the bench covering multiple positions.
Yeah, Ben's okay. He just hasn't taken a full part in training at the beginning of this week, and we want to make sure that he's fine for in terms of training. He's been training really well. We've been pleased with him. It's just some of those new players in the squad have just been used to handling the volume and the expectation of the amount of work that we require from them, and so he's just found working his way through that at the moment. So, but he'll be fine, and we make sure that he's okay, and we've been really happy with him. You
mentioned a fortnight ago that ideally you would have wanted more games in this short tour, but it's not for the faint-hearted. It's a tall order anyway, taking on South Africa, even more so with the absentees. What are your thoughts going into this game, mainly around second row, that there are hosts of names not available for this game, injuries, or it's not in the permitted international window?
Yeah, I just see it as a great opportunity for other people to step up and put their hand up. We've got a number of players that are unavailable to us because of the rules of the PRL and that, which is, we knew that. But yeah, there's that opportunity for others to go, look, I'm ready, given that chance. And they get the first opportunity to put a marker down for the first game and for the rest of the tour.
In terms of the new cap, Ellis Bevan, the last few years we've seen either Thomas, Gareth in the World Cup, or Kieran Hardy. There's a new face there. What can we expect from him? How are you looking forward to seeing him at night?
He's impressed us at training. He's got a left foot which gives us a different sort of kicking option. Just in terms of coming into this environment as a professional, is the way that he's worked, the extras that he's done after training. He's got a good voice. He's been really positive about taking feedback from the coaches and stuff. So we know a little bit about the other nines, and we just thought this is a great opportunity and a chance for him to get a cap under his belt, and we see a huge amount of growth in him, and we wanted to find out about someone else, in that position to give us some more depth.
Just a final one for me. Mason Grady at 12, an intriguing move. We haven't seen him there. He's usually 13. What's the thinking behind that, and what are you looking from him? He had a strong showing in that final game against Italy when he came on.
Yeah, and that's probably some of the thinking. It's I think the way the game is at the moment, up against a really physical South African team, there's a chance for him to get his hands on the ball a little bit more. You tend to 12s probably end up touching the ball 2 or 3 times more than a 13 does. So we want to get the ball in his hands, and we want to make things easy for him, a little bit easier to defend from that 12 position. So having someone like Owen with a little bit more experience sort of covering that 13, and there's a good chance to see how he does perform in that 12 jersey, and we're looking for someone to be, he's not just someone who we want to carry in terms of getting us across the game line. We know and we expect him to be able to do that, but there are definitely other elements to his game in terms of his offloading and stuff, and so for us it's about wanting to get more touches, and how do we manufacture that. And then, like we saw that the impact he made against Italy when he came on, the number of touches he had and carries, and there's a good chance for us to see him in that 12 jersey.
Okay. Rob?
New goals.
Yeah.
You're in just in between, actually. You don't have them for this game.
Yeah, no, we do have them for this game.
You do have them for this game as well. Is it going to make any difference at all?
No, not really. I mean, we had to do a little bit on the kick chase stuff in terms of
The Dupont thing.
yeah, just a little bit on that. So guys have got to make sure that they're either retreating or put back on side. So that's how the old law was anyway. So it's just getting used to that. And the other one's the free kick one from scrum.
Great if the Springboks don't have any more scrums, right?
Yeah, so so it'd be interesting to see how they're applied in terms of that. So there's not a huge amount of difference, and we've spoken about the changes and to expect that.
Looking at Ellis Bevan and even St Plumtree, we can speak to later, I think, the Exiles programme seems to be bearing a bit of fruit.
Well, the more the merrier, so it's challenging at the moment, but given that you look at this year, and next year is going to be even higher, the amount of non-Welsh qualified players we're going to have in our regions, and everyone talks about potentially going down to 3 regions, but when I look at it and the number of players that aren't qualified to be selected for Wales, we've only really got 3 regions in terms of the numbers to select a national team from. We're lacking in some depth in certain positions and real competition, and so that's a big challenge for us. But yeah, there's players in terms of that Exiles program. There's still a number of others out there that potentially the regions may make contact with, or will make contact with, that to help us in terms of giving us the opportunity to develop or have the chance of selecting more Welsh qualified players.
Who's leading on that, Warren? Is there a think tank at the union?
There's a little bit of both in terms of the Exiles stuff, and
it's difficult telling people you've got to take this player, though, isn't it? We kind of we try and keep our finger pretty close on to the pulse in terms of doing that. We've had some players that are in New Zealand who have been playing Super Rugby with Welsh qualifications, who have played for Wales, who have told us about 1 or 2 that they've been told, so they've passed that information on to us, and then we've kind of then spoken to and let the clubs know that these players are potentially Welsh qualified, and it's up to them from there. Yeah. But as you said, it's another route and another avenue to get hopefully a bit more quality.
Well, the thing is that we probably haven't been the most proactive in terms of that in the past. Scotland are very, very proactive. They've got someone within their coaching analysis setup who does an outstanding job in terms of the players that they've identified and targeted with Scottish qualifications. I think there's definitely a balance, isn't there? There's kind of like you want some. We've had players in the past and that, but you want to find that balance between developing from within and through your pathways and through your academies and rewarding that, but also not excluding players from outside of Wales who've got genuine ancestry and want to represent Wales.
You said last time we met that you wanted to gain some respect back from the Springboks as you hard earned before. Do you think this team can do that?
Yeah, we're not very experienced in terms of the number of caps and guys on the bench, and there's a great opportunity for this team to go out and perform, and we've been training, we've been working really hard. I look back to the game against them in the World Cup war, and I know there was a blowout in the score, but at 12-9 just before half time, I thought we'd acquitted ourselves really well, and then all of a sudden you get a penalty try, which I don't think was a penalty try, and shouldn't be awarded, and then they've scored from the kick-off, and then it's been a bit of a blowout, but up until then I was happy with that sort of first 30 odd minutes in terms of that performance. So we know with South Africa, it'll be dependent on how they play, whether they do try and move the ball. If I look at what they've tended to do with in their big games, and it's how they approach us. If you look at the amount of kicks on the weekend between the Bulls and Leinster, there was over 40 kicks per team in terms of the amount of kicking. South Africa in the World Cup could have potentially lost to England, and if you look at the kicking stats in that, England kicked it over 40 times. I think South Africa kicked it 27, and they've gone into the last game where they've probably dominated the kicking battle. So we've got to be smart in terms of and being prepared to handle what approach they'll take in terms of the kicking strategy and going to the air and handling that. And for us, we will be smart with our game management as well. And we've spoken about that as a group, and making sure that we stay in the fight and we stay in the battle, and when there is a chance for us to shift the ball and execute some attacking, we've got to be prepared to go, but we've got to make sure that we don't try and force that and then end up putting ourselves under pressure and having a turnover and then having to try and get out of our 22. And that was something that probably we were guilty of on the Six Nations, where we've had to have we've had 11 turnovers in our 22 compared with the World Cup where we've had one, and that put us under a huge amount of pressure trying to deal with that. So we have spoken about that, and so hopefully there'll be that focus on our game management.
Thank you.
Alex?
Hi Warren. Qatar are sponsoring the game Saturday, and there's a decent chance you could be playing there in a couple of years. What's your perspective on sort of external investment in rugby? Do you think it could be a good thing, or are there any concerns with it?
Oh, take the money and run. That's my approach. I think it's what the game needs, so I don't care where the money comes from in terms of I do care where the money comes from, but look, if there's a chance to look at external investment, it's widely done in football, so I don't see any different than any reason that rugby shouldn't be looking at different opportunities. Been done in golf as well, so we've all been. There's been a huge amount of strain on, not just in Wales but everywhere in the game in rugby in the last few years, post COVID, or that and the impact that's had on that. So, I definitely think there has been a reset, but having that investment externally could be a positive in terms of maybe growing the game globally more as well.
Because we've seen success in other sports go down that route, and it's been successful for them.
Absolutely, yeah. So they've been able to have that opportunity to have access to other streams of revenue that they might not have been readily available, and obviously other streams with pretty vast resources as well. So who are looking to expand their interests. So I think as long as we're smart in terms of how we approach that, and there is an opportunity to invest and grow the game and put the money back into the game, I see that as a positive.
Matt?
Warren, obviously we've talked about South Africa and world champions, etc., and the value of this fixture given the strength of the side they've named as well. But is there an element to this as well? You've got a young side. You mentioned in the Six Nations some players are perhaps really not even ready for this level just yet. we're at the start of the World Cup cycle. Is there an element here where it's almost that the sooner they learn what the standard they've got to reach is in this cycle, the better?
Yes.
And is that what you're, regardless of what happens on Saturday, if you've got 10 players coming to you afterwards saying, I now know what?
Well, I think, yeah, definitely. That's kind of been, I don't see it any different to when I arrived in end of 2008 when asked by Roger Lewis, you know, who do you want to play? And I just said, anytime we can play a Southern Hemisphere team, jump at that chance and go and try and get it, because that's the way you improve. You improve by, not just in rugby, but any sport, you improve by playing against the best, and that's the biggest part of the development. And I can remember when we had the trial we had before, I think the World Cup in 2015, it might have been, or was it before that, down at Ospreys, where we had the probables versus the possibles, and the probables won that game comfortably, and there was a lot of guys in that possible saying, you know, is this what Test match rugby is all about? And the guys said, no, there's another level above this. So, and they need to experience that, and it's kind of like you try and replicate, do as many things in training as you possibly can, but yeah, you want them coming off the field and learning from that, enjoying that, but also wanting to have more of it. So, and I look back at my own experience as a player and as a young player coming through and playing Auckland, who were one of the best teams in the world, full of All Blacks, and the first time I played against them, as a young Waikato player, they put 40 points on us, and I was the pace and the intensity of the game was kind of like, wow. But I came away from that going, oh, I want to play them again next week, because the amount I learned as a player was kind of like, you know, it was definitely part of the growth and development.
It's a balancing act, isn't it? Because how do you deal with it as the head coach? If some players, you know, if you do take a heavy defeat, some players might be sat there. It might go the other way, where they start doubting themselves and doubting their ability to cope at test level.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge, isn't it? It's if you start doubting yourself, if you start not believing in yourself, it's kind of like you've got to be able to overcome those sort of challenges, because Test match rugby is tough. It is physical. Yeah, you've got to be able to handle adversity. It's probably not the PC thing at the moment in today's society, but you've got to be mentally tough. You've got to go through that pain sometimes and be able to come out through the other side. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's what. And you've got to be brave. You've got to go overcome your fear factor. You come out there and you're playing against big physical men, and it's going to hurt, and you've got to go through some pain. And there's lots of things about playing at the top level that is tough. It is challenging, and so there are going to be lots of different emotions and lots of different things to challenge yourself on. But it's kind of like, if you get through that and you come out the other side, it's what ends up happening after that in terms of you as your personal development as a player. And then, you know, we've definitely got some individuals in the side that love that challenge. I think will thrive in them. Player. You know, two of the guys, I can see Dowie Lake as one of them. Dav Jenkins is the other one. That, you know, they won't walk away from the challenge. They'll run towards that challenge, because, you know, they see it as something that they thrive on in terms of meeting it head on and seeing it as part of their growth and development.
Chris?
Matthew Squeech's been a workhorse for the Dragons for years. What's the message for him? I mean, it's a hell of a task, isn't it, against us?
Yeah, he's been great. I just think probably the thing he's got a bit older. He looks physically in good shape. He's done a good job at in the set piece. So there hasn't been a lot of stuff. I've spoken to the two second rows in terms of the expectations, is that they know that how physical the game's going to be, and that's a big part of their role for the weekend, is just embracing the physical challenge that's going to come their way. And if they do that, they focus on their set piece, then that's all I can ask for. And there's a big chance for them to show us where they're at. And I think for Matthew as well, is thinking he's coming to us on a couple of occasions and we've been impressed by the way that he's trained, and he's been around for a while and he's had that experience. And if I was him, and I'd be thinking, go out and make a bit of a statement this weekend in terms of the way I prepare, the way that I play, and hopefully I can be around in the squad in the next few years.
An opportunity for him as much at 31 as it is for 21, I guess.
Yeah, look, 31's not old for a tight forward. I kind of look at that as a good age for. I'd like to think players around that age think I'm still going to be young enough and fit enough around for the next World Cup, and given if I work hard enough and train hard enough. So I'd like to think it's part of his motivation to wanting to go out there and put his hand up and play well.
Warren, you spoke of the exercise programme and about the Bulls and Leinster. I'm sure you would have seen Cameron Hanna come on the weekend. Have there been any conversations with him? I know he's been selected to Springboks, and were you thinking, oh goodness, he would have been a handy addition to wear red? Yeah,
look, there was some conversation through his agent, and it was understandable given that where he'd come through with the 20s program and how highly rated he was, that there was no need for him to have to commit to anyone else when he was in the pathway for that South African program, and I fully understand that. So he definitely, he would have been one of the ones that, given the chance, we would like to get our hands on. But it's not something you go and push too hard when you've had those conversations with someone saying, look, he's just going to sit tight at the moment. He's come through that 20s program, been successful, has started to make a name for himself, and wants to. He was on a pretty long-term contract with the Bulls anyway, in terms of seeing where he goes. So I thought he was good in the weekend.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.